Last time, I built what might just be the world's strongest Lego crusher. It's powered by 42 Lego pneumatic pistons, which are driven by compressed air. And because each one can output over 3 kilos or 7 pounds, this entire platform can provide some serious crushing force, which we'll measure in a minute using a load cell. But I couldn't stop wondering, what if it could do more than just crush things? So I designed a whole set of custom attachments. Some are made purely for destruction, spikes, blades, and other satisfying ways to crunch and squish things, and even whatever this sketchy thing is. But others might actually make this Lego machine useful? So today, we're upgrading the world's strongest Lego crusher and putting every attachment to the test. Now to start with, I had to strip down, clean and rebuild this press after this incident with a deodorant can that left it a smelly, sticky mess. So after cleaning all of these parts and rebuilding the cage, this is the meat and potatoes of our press. We've got a nice smooth pneumatic press platform that can then be popped back into its lovely clean cage. Once the machine was rebuilt, the next obvious upgrade needed is a pressure gauge to tell us exactly what pressures are being used. So this right here is a pressure gauge compatible with Lego, and if we take one of these little Lego compressors and stick it onto the pressure gauge, now when I pump the little compressor, we can see the gauge now sitting at 30 psi. We can use this gauge to tell us approximately how much force the press is exerting. Then the hosing we can hook up here, and I'll feed the hosing neatly through the cage here, and we can hook it up to the rest of the pneumatic hosing here. So now this right here is our primary air intake for this whole press. Now something I'd like to point out here is that this tiny hole here is what's supplying this entire spaghetti junction of pneumatic tubing feeding all of these 42 cylinders. You can see there's a lot of tubing going on in here, and then there's even more up there. So when we pump pressurized air into this press, it does take a while for it to fill all of these cylinders and push the press down or up. And then my output connects to this handgun here. So when I squeeze this lever here, we should see the pressure in the tank on here and on here. So if I turn the valve to neutral here, blocking all air into the press, now when I squeeze the trigger, we're at about 35 psi on here and about 35 psi on here. They don't match perfectly, possibly due to calibration and pressure drop when filling all of these pipes. And back up. But I've generally found the white Lego gauge reasonably accurate in previous projects. We can see there's still a little bit of pressure left, and we'll see that drop now when I open the valve. Once we've exhausted the remaining air in the pipes and cylinders, let's have a quick look at it in action. Okay, first up, I'm curious to see what happens if we stick this candle in here. We'll start with our lovely metal plate from Metal Technic Parts, and our upper plate, and in she goes. Wow, crushing this candle highlighted another important part of the press that needs a quick tweak. The axles. Ew, a little bit skew. Nice. And up we come. Slight pressure drop as the air fills the cylinders on the upstroke. Pretty impressive. Let's inspect. Oh, now we've got a mini candle we can light. Okay, to make sure this platform here is a bit more level when it's going down, I'm going to take these axles here and try and move them outwards a little bit. This extra space will be very useful. Now I can fit even bigger things in here. Now my first attachment is a super simple one, just a flat plate printed on my Bamboo Lab P2S, and just using standard PLA filament. That can now fit bigger things on it, like this banana. So let's squish this nice big banana. I don't know if this is useful per se, but it sure makes mashed banana quickly. I always find it interesting watching the pressure gauge as the pistons fill with air. Then for a satisfying crunch, we'll try out a bunch of these tasty dudes. Alright, here we go. Crunchy crunchy. Crunchy. Up we go. Looks like we've got a nice solid block of crackers. Ooh, wow, this is dust. Tasty dust. We can also mix and match plates. Alright, let's give these noodly dudes a good crunch. Alrighty, here we go. Oh, I'm gonna clean this up. Oh man, what a mess.
Filming this video is the most action my vacuum cleaner's gotten in months. At least Hetty had her fun though. Okay, but the all-important question I had at this stage, just how much crushing force is this 42 piston platform actually generating? To measure this precisely, I'm grateful to Metal Technic Parts for lending me their load cell. Really appreciate it, thanks guys. When we press down on it, we can see the force readout in kilos. This will tell us what our press is generating. To hold the load cell in place, I'll use some of this PLA tough filament, which should stand up to the abuse. These two saucers will allow the load cell to fit right into it here, and here. And now this will stabilize it in the press just here.
Okay, we'll bring this up to 10 psi. And now let's open the valve.
So, let's test how much crushing force is generated at 10, 20, 30, and 40 psi.
And we're getting 26.6 kilos at about 10 psi. Maybe about 9 psi.
We'll plot that right here.
Okay, now we'll go for 20 psi. Let's open the valve. 65 kilos, 66, 66.7 kilos.
That can go right here.
Okay, now let's bring her up to 30 psi. Okay, and down with the valve.
Oh, now we're getting some serious numbers.
Oh, that's 102.4 at 30 psi.
That's about 225 pounds for you Americans out there.
That's some brutal strength on this thing already. Okay, now we're going up to 40 psi, and this is about where I find the hoses will stay on safely. But for most LEGO pneumatics, if I go beyond 40, this is where the hoses start popping off. Okay, when I open this valve here, this press will produce about as much force as it can under its normal conditions before the hoses start popping off. Okay, let's see what we get. Here we go.
This is the pressure I used in almost all of my upcoming crush tests.
It's 126 kilos.
That's about 277 pounds. Not bad.
Okay, I've opened the valve up to let just a tiny bit more pressure through. Let's see if we can go just a bit beyond 40 psi. Hopefully nothing pops off. Let's see.
At higher pressures, this can crush far harder, but often something leaks.
129 kilos. And I think something popped there.
So it looks like our top reading today is 129 kilos or 284 pounds.
This is the only pipe right here that popped off, and I think we hit about 45 psi before this actually popped off. There we go. Nice. Okay, let's try crushing a few things using these two plates here, which concentrate the force.
Right, well, let's see what over 120 kilos can actually do.
Why don't we see if one of these knockoff LEGO lift arms can survive against its own kind? Hopefully it stays in place when we press. Okay, let's see how you hold up, LEGO. Oh! Yeah. Oh! Nice. Oh yeah, crunched. Okay, I kind of doubt it'll be able to crush this thick glass, but let's see. You can sit just on here. Safety goggles on. I don't fancy cleaning this one up. Let's go.
Oh, bye-bye lemongrass.
Oh.
If I haven't used you in the last 3 house moves, I probably never will.
Well, looks like I was wrong. It does have enough strength for this glass bottle.
Okay, for our first sorta useful attachment, how about this apple slicer?
Alright, let's give this attachment a try. Hopefully when this comes down on something, it'll be able to chop it into 6-ish pieces. This should be able to attach to the ceiling just here. There we go. I'll add this thin base plate so I don't juice all over it. Alright, how about a nice juicy apple? Alright, let's slide our apple into place. Okay, here she goes.
Gotta say, I found this one really satisfying.
Oh, beautiful. And back up. Oh, I couldn't be more perfect. Nice. That's a good apple. Well, breakfast is served.
I tried another similar design, but this time using only one slicing blade. So in my never-ending quest to pop Coke cans in violent ways, let's see if we can chop this one open. Now I've got to say, these cans are surprisingly hardy. In fact, I had to bring it up and chop it a couple of times before it finally gave way. Later though, we'll upgrade this chopping attachment to a more aggressive one. In the end though, persistence won out and we eventually managed to crack this nut. This one was probably one of my least useful attachments.
So can we do what humans have always done with bunches of grapes? Squish them into happy juice. I guess this handful will be a sort of rosé.
This was my first juicer designed to help squish things into fruit juice.
So we've got our juice press just here. And now we can pop in a few grapes and a few red ones for our rosé. Now we can pop this into our press. And now hopefully when this press comes down, it'll squish these grapes and the juice will come out of this funnel here. We can collect our juice with this.
Okay, let's make some grape juice. Unfortunately, during the press here, I realized several design flaws, starting with the fact that we can't actually see the grapes being crushed. So this clearly needs some rework.
This is gonna have to be a micro batch. And up we come. Oh, this upper plate got stuck. Oh, they're nice and squished. I think the main problem is just my terrible design here. All the juice comes through this one hole, and it's currently blocked by a grape. That's cool, they almost seem to reinflate themselves. But then the real question is, what does our lovely juice taste like? Let me give this a wee sip. Good lord, that is so sweet. Well, I bet this would make a great spritzer.
Okay, here's version 2 of our juicer. This time the fruit goes on top, here, so we can still see it getting crushed, which is done by this upper plate. Then the juice just runs out here. Now some of these plates were quite large, so to speed up the print I simply removed the 0.4mm tip, and replaced it with one of these 0.6mm tips.
Now with this tip I should be able to print quite a bit faster.
It swaps out in seconds, which is well worth it as it knocked hours off each print. I went through a lot of prints for this build. So I'd like to extend a big thanks to Bamboo for partnering with me on this video, and helping me to build these crazy machines. So if you've been thinking about getting a 3D printer, or stocking up on some filament, Bamboo Lab's anniversary sale is running now, with discounts on printers, accessories and more. I've left a link in the description. And now finally we have our 2nd gen juicer. I lugged my air tank outside for instant compressed air, so I didn't need to run this loud and slow Lego compressor from my previous video. This should drive the press much better. Okay, if we're gonna juice something, we may as well pick something real juicy. And add some strawberries for color. Oh, I already know this is gonna taste great. Okay, I'll admit, the open design looks much more satisfying, but we are losing a lot of juice. Ah well, form over function for this one, I guess. Now we still have a nice healthy fruit shot.
That is flattened. And how does she taste? Whoa, that tastes amazing.
Then, to go with our breakfast shot, rather than mushing the banana into mash, how about a handy banana slicer? I considered printing one from MakerWorld, but I wasn't sure it'd fit my press, so I just designed one in Tinkercad. And the P2S had it ready a couple hours later. Now our banana fits onto it like this, and the press will hopefully squish it into slices. By the way, if you like experiments like these with Lego and technology, feel free to subscribe or drop a like, and my Patreon is linked below. Cheers! Getting the slices out, however, is another story.
Ew. Get out. There, perfectly sliced banana.
Next up then is a holder for canisters. I'm always stunned by how fast this thing zips around. Now previously I struggled to crush cans and bottles as they kept moving or escaping the press. But this holder will make sure anything can-shaped will stay in place, like this shaken up Coke. Then to pierce things like canisters, I designed this vicious looking spike on a plate.
Ouch.
Man, like butter. I actually forgot to fix the leak in the tubing for this shot, but it still barely even registered that there was a Coke can in it. On the topic of vicious spikes, how about a whole plate full of them? This spike plate nests into the base plate like this, and I'm hoping it'll grip things while crushing them. And here's our gnarly spiked plate, hot off the bed. And for an easy first test, let's try a juicy orange. Juicy. The spikes seem to do a good job holding the object in place, but it also stops the object from breaking apart.
Very nice.
And leaves some impressive punctures. Similar story for harder things like apples.
Holy.
So what about something crunchier like these custard creams? Well, it certainly seemed to puncture well, but because they can't move anywhere, they can take a surprising amount of weight. I think the cream and spikes combo holds all this mess together. But why don't we give it a real crunchy challenge? I accidentally chipped my glass here, so we may as well feed it to the beast.
There we go.
That's some next level crunch. I was a little worried with how uneven the platform got, though I didn't see any real damage. Well done, Spikes. So, what if you want to apply some disgusting reduced salt ketchup to your food? Like, really quickly. I wish I got a better shot of this to show just how far the ketchup stream is reaching. Almost halfway across the garden. This long-range ketchup dispenser is clearly my most useful invention yet. Okay, we've covered breakfast, so what's for dinner? Well, why mash spuds with a fork when you could spend 10 times as long using this mashing attachment I made? For longer prints like these, I really appreciate being able to step out and check on them using the Bamboo Handy app. So now that our spuds are ready, and our masher is hot off the print bed, let's give it a good squish. Now, it doesn't save you any time, but it actually works reasonably well. At least until you've got to remove the mash from the masher. Does it make any difference if the skin is left on? Not really. Still makes mash. Then to add to our dinner, how about some beans? We'll ignore the convenient opening tag and use our spike to break into it instead. Jodu's boss. I did print a version of this spike using PETG CF filament for ultimate strength, but it turns out this standard PLA tough was plenty strong for this press. Well, I don't know if this really helped much, but now we have an access hole to our beans. Okay, I won't even pretend this one is useful. I just really wanted to know what happens if you chuck a canister of shaving foam into the press. This one was real satisfying. I just love the squishy noises it makes. And after all this mess, at least the foam is probably helping to clean the press a little. Of course, I had to give it a double squish to enjoy the foam being pushed out of the press. Very nice.
I think that's our hole here.
I was pleasantly surprised by how easy it was to clean all the foam. Not that it ended up mattering. Finally then, the obvious thing I wanted to test was turning the press into a guillotine of sorts. So with this odd looking holder here, I can take my kitchen knife and slide it into the slot over here, which holds tightly in place.
So now hopefully we can slice things.
Like yet another can. I know we've killed enough cans in this, but I suspect this knife could do a much better job of slicing than my previous chopper. And it certainly looks more vicious. Let's see. Oh yeah, like butter. I think we're onto something here. This guillotine absolutely can chop things harder and probably faster than I can. I think this thing can do some real damage.
Shotgun.
Now this machine has processed enough food for today, so here's a quick cut of an orange, a cucumber, and a pomegranate. And a final squish of the pomegranate before our finale. I love the juices, but this looks pretty yuck.
Yuck.
Okay, for our finale, there's a reason why I'm drenching the press in water. I wanted to replicate my original video's attempt at piercing a deodorant can, like this, but this time there's a twist. This time I'm placing some candles around it, kinda looks like a creepy seance, so that when it's pierced, the candles can ignite the gases. However, even though I used a smaller canister to make sure it couldn't stay lit for too long, I wasn't prepared for just how brutal this experiment would be. This is unfortunately the last surviving moment of this press. R.I.P. little buddy. It took a second, but then... Yeah, no amount of pre-soaking this machine was gonna help. I knew there'd be some concentrated jets of fire, but the knife couldn't be retracted in time, so rather than fully emptying in just seconds, it took over 2 minutes for the water to finally douse it. There were multiple jets of flame and only one hose, so my best bet was just to keep everything as wet as possible throughout. I'm sure I don't need to say this, but obviously, don't ever try this at home. It is dangerous, and Lego does not hold up to heat well.
Oh my god, finally. Oh, that was probably the dumbest thing I've done. Jeez. Sorry about that. No, we're all good. No fire brigade needed. Now the problem here is I can't actually retract the knife. All the pneumatics are toast. I don't know how to extract this thing. Well, good thing this was the last scene I filmed. Oh, Metal Technic part survived.
I will admit, I do feel bad damaging so much precious Lego in this. I knew this would cause some real damage, but I think actually only the metal parts can be salvaged now. Everything here is toast. I guess this just means I'm gonna have to build this thing even bigger and stronger in the future. Cheers, folks.